Hey, this is Dylan Frye, the Real Estate Guy, here to be your guy for any real estate needs in the Kansas City area. And if you're looking at moving to the Northland or moving to the Kansas City area, I'm here to help you out, help you find people that are going to be people you can trust and you know and you like, and they're going to help you with transition to the Kansas City area. So today we are doing one of our weekly interviews with Rusty. He is the owner of United Insurance. He is going to be able to help you price your insurance, find different insurance policies. If you've got situations to where maybe you ran into some bad luck and you need SR22s, different stuff like that, he's got options for you. And we're going to talk through that a little bit here in just a minute. But before we get into that, if this is your first time on the channel, make sure that you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and then also hit that little bell so you'll get notifications of future interviews with different people that can help you transition to the Kansas City area. Today, again, we're with Rusty, and he's with United Insurance. He's going to tell us all about insurance, tell us how he got into it. He's got a really great story, so I encourage everybody, listen up, check him out, and let's get into it. Hey, Rusty, so tell me a little bit about yourself, about your family, how you got into this thing.
Well, I'm married. We've got our son turns 12 next week.
That's awesome.
Actually, this week on the 7th, so.
It's going to be a fun weekend.
Yeah. A real fun weekend. So I started off in the corporate world. I was with Kansas City Power and Light, and I ended up, I got laid off from them and decided I didn't want to work for anybody else anymore. So I went and got my insurance license and started my own agency. I started off with Farmers and moved from Farmers to independent agents, and then I was looking to get out of insurance, and we found a friend of mine had an insurance company and wanted me to come up be the manager for it. And so I did, and they offered to sell it to me at the beginning of my second year, and I bought it at the beginning of my third year.
Yeah. So very modest. I know you a little bit. So tell me a little bit, why is insurance intriguing to you?
I'd always kind of had a passion for it
That's okay. So you've always had a passion for insurance. What is your passion driven from? Do you just like to help people? Where's that come from?
My passion is helping people and educating people on what they need.
Yeah. So talk to me a little bit about that. What, if somebody's looking for an insurance policy, what are the biggest things that you would focus on?
Liability limits.
Okay.
So you've got state minimum, which is $25.50, $25 all the way up to $500,000 or stuff like that. I don't like writing state minimum at $25.50, $25 because it's not adequate coverage. Most cars nowadays off the showroom floor are worth way more than $25,000. So if you have state minimum and you get in an accident with it, if the vehicles were more than $25,000, they're going to come after you to pay out of pocket for it.
Correct, and that's on the property damage side, which
Yes.
a lot of people don't realize that property damage is thrown there on the back end of it. And me, I have a background in insurance. I was an insurance agent for a long time. I always love talking to different people that actually give a damn about who they're insuring. And it's huge when you understand those. So like if you're talking about those three numbers, when you're looking at the liability side of your insurance policy, it's 25, 50, 25. So there's the first number's the bodily injury. Second number is bodily injury for the entire accident. So let's say you injured 7 people, it's only going to pay up to that much. Yep. And then the third one is the property damage, which is what you were alluding to right there, where that third one people don't realize, but the minimum on that is, if it's still the same, is $10,000.
It's 25 now.
It's 25. Okay,
yep.
So seeing that just shows I've been out of insurance for a little bit. But at one point in time it was 10,000. Now it's 25. Yep. But still, imagine you just bought even a used truck, and you're driving around. You just spent $40,000 on this truck. And somebody just T-bones you, and they've got $25,000 in property damage.
Yep.
And they're only paying $25,000 for your truck.
Yep.
That is crazy.
Yep. And that's where the uninsured and underinsured motorists kick in to help cover that.
Yeah, and you and a lot of people are like, I know back there was different agents that took that stuff away, like didn't offer that stuff as much because they were trying to compete based on price.
Yeah.
And I think that is something that it's driven by by insurance companies that are more online based. I think if you're looking for an insurance company and they are constantly giving you the cheapest price and like, hey, we can take this away to get this where you want it and different stuff like that, go somewhere else.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because they are going to make you pissed when you have a claim.
Yep. People don't like insurance until they actually need it.
24/7. Everybody hates the insurance guy till their house burns down and it's 3 a.m. and they want him out of bed. Yep. And, I mean, I know how I handle those situations, and I'm assuming you're probably taking that call at 3 a.m. Like, those things, that's one thing that people don't realize is when you're an insurance agent, you're getting those calls at 3 a.m. because a lot of times your client has your cell phone number, and they're like, and they don't, and nobody knows, like, hey, there's a claims number or different stuff like that. There's a claims department and stuff. So they're calling you at 3 in the morning. Their house is just burnt down. All right, let me get on the phone and let's get this thing. Like, and that's what insurance is for. It's for the worst days in somebody's life, and you have to prepare like that's going to be the worst day.
Yep.
If you're saying, hey, well, I just need this because I don't want to get a ticket if I get pulled over. Well, I mean, that makes sense, but that's not like cool. That ticket's probably, even if you got a ticket, what's it cost you? A couple $100?
Yeah.
At most. I mean, maybe you're like, I just, that's not a motivation. But the risk versus reward, that doesn't incentivize me to get insurance.
Yeah.
Is because I'm paying, even like somebody that's paying $150 a month, and you're like, oh, I'm worried about getting a ticket because I don't have insurance that's going to be $100, $200 ticket.
Yep.
It just seems to me that doesn't really outweigh either one of them. My concern to get insurance is because if I hurt somebody,
I want to make sure they're taken care of.
That's a valid point. Yeah, that's huge.
Yep.
So talk to me a little bit about that. What's some situations that you've ran into that you've seen where insurance has helped people?
I've seen quite a bit, actually. I've seen where it's hurt people not having the correct coverage, too.
Yeah. So give me a story. Let's start with, what's your favorite situation where you were at, where I know I had a few of these where it was, I would tell somebody something and then it would come to fruition because I told everybody the same thing, talking about liability limits, same stuff you're talking about, walking them through it. Hey, this is how we're going to handle this claim if something happens. And then, you insure 1,000 people, you're going to have a claim.
Yep.
And then talk to me about what's your favorite situation that you've been in?
Probably one of my favorites. I had she's a client now. She was a friend of mine and she had USAA, and I kept telling her, hey, let me look at your stuff. And she's like, oh, I've got USAA. You can't beat them. And finally she gave me a call and let me quote her. And she actually had 5,100 with State Farm or with USAA, and actually quoted her at 250, 500 on her auto, and was 900 cheaper a year. And then the homeowners, I was 900 cheaper a year with 500,000 liability on it.
So not only are you adding value to her coverage, but you were able to save her money.
Yep.
That's huge.
Yep.
That's huge. And here's the thing is, if something ever happens, you're going to save her a lot more money than that $900 a year.
Yes, absolutely. And I educate my clients that if something happens, to give me a call before we file a claim. Because I'm in insurance and I don't want people to file a claim if they don't have to.
Correct, and I think that's a huge topic that a lot of people need to be aware of is why, when do I file a claim? Because everybody thinks, hey, I've got insurance. I should file a claim if I have these few things happen or whatever. One big claim that I always seen was people calling me because their basement flooded because of settling, and it's not a covered loss. So it like those type of things, when that situation pops up, it's good to have somebody in your corner that's going to be able to educate you before you go through that process, because now every insurance company out there that is looking at it is saying, hey, they like to file claims because it comes down to a statistic.
Yeah, and then, I mean, it's also, if you call an insurance company and file a claim, even if you end up getting a zero payout on it, it's still considered a claim, and it's going to follow you for 5 to 7 years.
Yeah, and that comes down to the actuary side of it, where they're talking about the statistics and the likelihood to file claims. If you have multiple zero pay claims, insurance companies look at you as high risk.
Yep.
Because now they're saying this person, it doesn't matter what they're going to do, they are going to file claims.
Yep.
And that's one thing that insurance is an interesting subject, because a lot of people are like, well, what do I pay insurance for? Well, it's for those worst case scenarios.
Yep.
In the biggest situations.
Yep, that's what I tell people. I'm like, the only time you want to file a claim is if it's a catastrophic loss.
Yeah. And I think that's an interesting situation too, is when you're talking about catastrophic loss, and I want people to get this correct, what you're saying there is catastrophic loss is different to every single person. Yep. And that's why it's good to have somebody in your corner that can talk to you through that. Because, well, I mean, I talk to different business owners, and they're at different stages in their life. I've got people that make $50,000 a year, people that make hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, people that make millions a year. Catastrophic losses are different to each and every one of them. So somebody that's in this stage, $10,000 isn't a catastrophic loss to them. Yep. Somebody that's in the 50,000 range, that's a lot of money. And it's a lot of money in general, but that's a catastrophic loss at that point. So that's why you have to be able to talk it through with everybody.
I've got one of my clients, we had a storm come through, and they ended up, the roof started leaking.
Uh-huh.
And so they called me, so I sent my contractor out there, excuse me, and I think we had them with a $2,500 deductible, and my contractor actually was able to fix the roof, and then I had another contractor come in and fix the water damage, and we were able to get it fixed under what it would have cost to file a claim.
That's huge.
Yeah.
Having resources and being a center of influence for your people is huge. Like, you have to. That's why that comes from my insurance background, is being able to have so many people in my tool belt to be able to pull out if something happened. I've carried that over into real estate, because now anytime I'm working with investors or new homeowners or anybody, if they say, hey, I've got this is coming up on this house, I want to get this fixed, call me. I'm gonna connect you with somebody that can help you. And if they can't help you, call me back. Somebody. I've got somebody else. Like, or I'm gonna try and get you in front of it as many people as you want. If you want a couple different options, let's do it. That is, when you have people in your corner that have those type of connections, it makes your life so much easier.
Yes, absolutely.
It's huge. That's why I promote myself as the real estate. Because if there's anything that goes on with the real estate, I'm able to help you. I'll find you somebody.
Yep.
It's huge. So I'll tell you some crazy stories that I've had where there's things that seem like a small benefit on policies, and like, if viewers out there, when you're talking to insurance company, you need to ask them what different coverages there are that are potential options, and not always go with the cheapest. So here's a situation where I had, and it changed my mentality, because this happened early on. I was with an insurance company when I was 18, 19, and I wrote a policy, And I always quoted them emergency roadside rental reimbursement, everything. But I had this penny pincher, and she talked me out of the $3 a month it would have been for the emergency roadside and the rental car reimbursement. She was like, I don't want it. I don't want it. I don't want it. And I was like, well, it's $3. And eventually I just said, okay, I'll take it off. You'll save that money. We'll be under your budget. Perfect. A few months went by. She calls and says, hey, I can't make my payment on my insurance. I'm like, what happened? She's like, well, my car, I ended up having a flat tire on the side of the road. Couldn't fix it. Couldn't repair it. She was an older lady. Couldn't repair it. She couldn't pay for the emergency roadside because she was living check to paycheck. She didn't have anybody to help her. Now, I'm going to be honest. Had she called me when she was on the side of the road, I probably would have went and changed her tire. But on that side note, she didn't have anybody to help her change her tire. And so she left her car on the side of the road, got multiple tickets because it was just left there unattended. They ended up impounding it, towed it away. She couldn't make it to work, didn't have a job anymore.
Yep.
You're talking about something that if I would have just been able to convince her to pay that $3,
yep,
I would have been able to keep her in her job, and everything would have been fine, because then at that point they would have sent somebody out to change her tire. She had the spare in the trunk. She would have been able to change her tire, get her taken care of, get her back on the road. And it's little things like that that, again, goes back to you don't know what a catastrophic loss is to everybody, and it could be different, and you just have to talk through it. And that was one of the worst feelings I had because I was like, man, I couldn't talk her into that extra $3 a month to get her taken care of.
Yep. One of my probably worst feelings I've had in insurance. I had a guy that I quoted his auto and quoted his renters. He went with the auto insurance, and he didn't want to pay the $23 a month for renter's insurance. 2 months into his policy, he called me and his house burnt down, and he lost everything.
Oh my gosh. And it works both ways.
It does.
That's an awful situation. I had a client that same situation, didn't want to pay for the renter's policy, and I was like, dude, it's like the multi-line discounts, it's literally $3.
Pays for itself.
Or $2 or $3 or whatever. It's basically paying for itself. He's like, I don't want it. I don't want it. I don't want it. And I was like, man, I'm not writing the policy without it, which is like with the company I work for. That's a big no-no. You're not supposed to say that. I'm like, I'm not doing it. And he goes, okay, fine, I'll just do it, because he had to have insurance that day or whatever. He's like, I'll do it. 2 weeks went by. It was one of the craziest stories that I had ever heard. He calls me middle of the night. He's like, man, my house burned down, or my apartment burned down. And I was like, oh, no, let me get a hold of claims. I'll get somebody out there. Within 5 hours, they had somebody out there. They wrote him $5,000 check, got him into a hotel, everything like that. Boom. Within 3 days, they realized it was a total loss on his apartment. They had the entire funds from the renter's policy in his account within 3 days. It was huge. So I go back out there because at that point, he was like, man, I know there were some other coverages that you had talked to me about. Let's redo this. So I was like, hey, I'll come out and do a full insurance review. So I go out to talk to him, do this full insurance review. This dude was able to move into a better neighborhood because he was in a pretty rough one at that point in time. He was able to move into a better neighborhood, closer to his job. Now he's got less drive time, all this different stuff. It changed his life just because he had that coverage, which insurance isn't supposed to be a betterment, but in this situation, it was for him. Yeah. Now, when I get to talking to him, he tells me the story of how his house burned down. So he had a buddy that was staying over with him. The buddy was cooking something on the stove, and he was actually at work. And the buddy was cooking something on the stove. The buddy got a booty call text, and he just left. And so now his entire apartment's up in flames, and it's all over because his buddy went to get some ass. Like, it was hilarious, and I was like, what? And you're trying, and then him and I were joking, and I was like, and you tried to you letting your friends cook in your apartment while you're at work when they're just going to run out, but you tried to cheapskate me for $3 a month. And that dude's like, man, I'm so glad you went back and told it. That's why I've never understood that concept of, hey, you can't, insurance companies out there that have said, hey, you can't package sell. You can't tell somebody that you'll only do this. Why not?
Yep.
Why not like one saying that I think everybody should live for is if you stand for nothing, or what is it? I got to say it correctly because I mess it up. How does it go? Like where you stand, if you don't stand for something, then you essentially stand for nothing. You don't get any respect. There's a saying out there that for some reason it just escaped me. But you have to stand for something.
You've got to stand for something,
whatever.
I don't
it
know.
is.
I don't remember.
You'll fall for anything.
Yes.
I'm pretty sure.
Yep.
So if you stand for nothing, you'll fall for anything. And that's true. Take care of people. Stand for something. Do whatever's best for your people and live by your name. That's one reason why I love being in the real estate industry, because it doesn't matter what happens. If it's a bad house, I'm going to say, man, walk away.
Yep.
Get the heck out of here.
I get the same thing. I get people that come to me trying to buy a 2005 Ford Escape from a buy here, pay here lot, and they're wanting to put full coverage on it. And, I mean, the thing's worth $1,000 or $1,500, and I'm like, look, if you put full coverage on it, I'm going to get more money on it. But if something happens, it's not going to be worth it because you're going to owe money on a car that you can't pay for.
Correct.
You can't drive.
And insurance companies have those. They have those MVR reports. They know when that vehicle's been wrecked. A lot of times, if it's on a buy here, pay here place, it's probably been wrecked at some point and restored. So now you're talking about a car that may or may not be borderline salvage title, and it's not worth it.
Nope.
And that's that's extremely common, where people are like, "Oh, I need full coverage on it." What does that mean? And what are you willing to pay for that? Because that is at that point in time, it's a lot of money.
That surprises me how many people think full coverage is rental and towing included.
Yeah. Well, and that's because I used to tell people all the time, like, hey, I'll write full coverage on it, but I'm going to add these on there too, because if something happens, like, one, we already know you got a loan on your car, so you're not going out and just buying a new car. Two, because you already have this other loan, you're not trying to go buy right then and there. So let's get you in a rental car at least for 30 days or whatever it is. And then let's get your vehicle towed to that spot, because that is, I don't know how many times it saved me when I was running around I had a 98 Ford Escort. And I had emergency roadside service. The amount of times that I would leave because those old cars, they didn't have the automatic shutoffs on the lights and different stuff like that. The amount of times I'd be looking through something, and then I'd get out of my car and I'd leave the light on or something. Like, I was in there. I used to, so when I was in school in St. Joe, I would show up at the office at sometimes I'd show up early in the morning, 5, 6 a.m. I'd be sitting in my car doing work and whatnot, and then because I'd use the office Wi-Fi, doing work, and then I'd have my light on in my car, and then I would leave, go do whatever I had to do, and I'd end up leaving it on because it was dark when I had it. It got light. I didn't need the light anymore, but I forgot to turn it off, and then I'd end up having a dead car. And I know they even threatened me. They were like, "Hey, if you have one more situation like this, we are going to cancel this part." And sure enough, I ended up getting a flat tire somewhere and had to have it towed. So they ended up canceling the emergency roadside. But the amount of money that saved me, it's huge.
Yep.
But then again, I was 18 years old.
Yeah, but you got to be careful with it, because, like I said, if you do
Correct.
file too many, they'll drop you for it.
Correct. Yes.
There's a fine line.
Yeah, and it's a situation where you have to have somebody that's knowledgeable on it.
Yep.
Back then, I will be honest, I was not that knowledgeable on the whole situation, and it saved me a ton of times.
Yep.
I had one that was a chronic. When I had my agency, I had an agency up in Brookfield, Missouri. And when I had that agency, I had one that would call me every week because something was going on with her car or wouldn't start or whatever. And every time I'd be like, just move the wheel a little bit because it had that lock on it. And I didn't realize what was going on because I had somebody, like we sent somebody out there once and they didn't tell me what happened. And then the second time she called in, I was like, that situation you're talking about, I'm like, I really don't want it to cancel. So I was like, where are you at? And so I just drove over there and was like, I'll come check it out. And then I get in the car and I was like, well, it's not like ticking or nothing. So the car's not dead. And so then I've been around cars long enough. I just grabbed the wheel and turned it a little bit and started it because it had the wheel lock on it, so it wouldn't let the key turn on, and it started right up. And she was like, "Oh, thank you." And I was like, "All right, now I know what's going on." So every time she'd call, I'd be like, "Just turn the wheel a little bit." And it's different situations where you get to know your clients.
Yep.
Yeah. So tell me about what are the worst situations you've seen?
I have somebody that's never drank in his life and came home and his wife had left him.
Oh my gosh.
And he went out to the bar and got shit-faced drunk and ended up getting the wrong way on I-70 and hit a family and got sentenced to 20 years in prison and did 10 years and got out with good behavior. And the only thing he had left to do was to get his license back, was to get his SR22. And so I wrote it for him in my office, and he just started bawling. In my office, he was like, "I'm never going to have any normalcy in my life, but at least this will give me some kind of normalcy back."
Yeah.
And that's very emotional for me. I like that I can be a part of somebody's life like that.
When you're part of the comeback.
Yeah.
Yeah, because, I mean, people make mistakes in their life all the time. The amount of people, and that's a pretty serious situation where somebody died. It's a drunk driving situation. That's pretty serious. SR22 happens to a lot of people. And it's not always the drunk driving.
No,
I mean,
speeding tickets.
Sometimes it's speeding tickets. You got too many. Sometimes it's just like, I know it's improper driving. There's different tickets you can get that
CNI.
Correct. CNI. So there's different situations, and SR22 is one of the harder ones. I mean, when I was in insurance, I never had anywhere that I could offer it through because we didn't do standard business. They're the non-standard. I always get confused because when the terminology was different inside of the company that I worked for, and their standard and non-standard was different than the actual standard and non-standard that the insurance market goes by. And so it always confuses me anytime I talk about it, which way is the high risk and which way is not. So, but that's huge. If somebody needs high risk insurance, they reach out to you and you're able to take care of them.
Yep.
And even if it's a situation where you can get them a better situation, you can make it happen.
Yep. And I've got clients that came to me 5 years ago for an SR22, and they've changed their life around. And now 5 years later, I have their business insurance, their home insurance, their life insurance on them and their wife and their baby. And to me, it's satisfying to know that, I'm not the main reason that they changed their life around, but at least I get to be a part of it and help them.
That's huge.
Yep.
It's part of being, like it just said, it's part of being a part of their comeback.
Yep.
Helping people turn their lives around. That is fun stuff.
It is. It really is.
And it's overall fun to take care of people. That's always been my biggest joy. Whether it's been in insurance or real estate. Now I'm in the real estate, and I get to help people find their dream homes. A lot of times houses are the biggest investment that people make, and one thing I've held on to is they also need to make sure that they protect that biggest asset, which is, hey, find the right insurance coverage for this property as well, because you don't know what's going to happen.
Yep. And that's why it's also good to at least look at getting an umbrella policy as well, especially on a home and auto together.
Correct. I think that is huge. Getting an umbrella policy. And for the viewers that don't know, explain to me a little bit, what does an umbrella policy cover?
So basically an umbrella policy is a blanket coverage over your auto and home.
Correct. For
So,
what?
For you can do $1 million, $2 million, you can do up to $5 million on the umbrella.
And so for the viewers, that's going to be your liability coverage.
Yep. So
here's some situations that I've seen happen. And I always told people, and I know there's varying cases on how much somebody could be sued for, but a good rule of thumb is all your assets. So any home, autos that you own, any equity you have in those. So any 401ks, mutual funds, stocks, bond, anything that's reportable.
Yep.
A lawyer can find it.
Yep. Even your home.
All your assets. Then you subtract out any debt, because they can only take what it's at, the actual equity, plus 2 times your income. And if you use that as your rule of thumb on how much coverage you need, and you do that, majority of the time you're going to be in a good situation if something happens.
Yep.
But you would be surprised how many people, you just got to think about it, how fast that adds up. We're talking about the 250, 500 is a rare coverage that people have. Mm-hmm. But how many people out there are making $50,000 to $80,000 now? So take 2 times 50,000, that's 100,000 right there. Say they own a home. Well, if they've owned the home for the last 3 years, they've seen at least a 30% increase on that home value. So say they bought this $150,000 home, they only owe $100,000 on it. Now it's worth $200,000. Well, there's another $100,000. Now that's $200,000 right there. Mm-hmm. And we haven't even talked about any money you have in your bank account, any money you have in 401ks, mutual funds, stocks, bonds, CDs, anything out there that you have, other rental properties. We just talked about your job and your house, and we're at $200,000, and that's I would say that's a pretty average situation. Is somebody that now let's talk about bigger homes. You're talking somebody that buys a $400,000 home. Maybe they put 20% down. You put $80,000 down on this house. Now you've seen a 30% increase on that house, so that it's gained about $100,000. So now it's worth $500,000. And you owe $320 on it, or $300, because you paid a little bit down over the last few years. Now you've got a $200,000 gap. Yep. I would assume because you bought a $400,000 house that you were making at least 30% of that. So you were making at least $110,000. Now you're talking $220,000 plus $200,000. Now you have $500,000 at risk. Yep. And you just got in an accident and you killed somebody.
Yep. And with the umbrella, that's what that covers. So, like, say you have $1 million umbrella. Say you've got 250, 500, 250, and then $1 million umbrella. So, if you get an accident and kill somebody, the insurance company is going to offer them $1.5 million. And the majority of people, $1.5 million, they'll walk away without suing you.
Correct.
So, it's covering what you have so that you don't.
And I think something that is understated, and insurance agents understate the value of it, is if you have those. Let's say it's a situation where you got into an accident and somebody didn't. The other person was maybe at fault. It was a toss up, and now they're suing you because the other person passed away. The family is suing you, and essentially it's hearsay or whatever. You have state minimums. By the time the insurance company is going to know this is going to drag out, they're just going to settle $25,000, $50,000, whatever it is that they need to pay for that.
Yep, and then the family's going to come after you.
Correct. They're going to try and come after you, and now you have to pay for your own legal expenses. Yep. Where in that same situation, you have that 1.5 million in coverage. Now,
That includes
the
legal
insurance
fees.
company has a reason to defend you, because now they're like, oh, it's not just $25,000, it's 1.5 million. We're going to go to bat for 1.5 million.
Yep.
And if we can see a case, now they're going to go defend you in court. And insurance companies have the best lawyers. Like,
Yes, they do.
you got to, and so that's one thing that I always focused on is, hey, you want to make sure that you have enough coverage that if they are suing you, the insurance company doesn't just say, hey, we'll just settle.
Yep.
Because if they're smart, those lawyers cost a lot of money. So they want to make sure that they're going to get their time out of it. And a lot of times insurance companies, they review cases. The company I worked for, they paid a claim every 17 seconds.
Wow.
So imagine the amount of claims and that's the crazy thing is people say insurance claims. Everybody talks about the insurance claims that don't get paid, but they were paying a claim every 17 seconds.
Yep.
That's huge.
Yep.
That's a lot of money going out, because I've never seen a claim under $500. So just think about that. Every 17 seconds, and you've got claims over $500. I rarely saw claims under $3,000. And this was 4 years ago, before everything blew up.
Little fender benders normally $3,500 to $5,000
Yeah,
without any injury.
correct. And so you're talking, and there's multi-million-dollar claims going on all the time.
Yep.
It's huge. People need to be aware of it, because, and I've always seen one kickback that I've always gotten is, well, you can't get blood out of a turnip or whatever it is, and
They find a way.
they find a way. They will garnish your wages. They can garnish up to 30% of your wages. I'm pretty sure that's the number. It's 20%, but I know they can garnish your wages.
Yep.
And they can make it to where you have to pay it off in the next 10 years. And so that's another thing is when talking to people, if people are scraping by, and I've seen this situation happen. I had a client that this situation happened. They got a $20,000 bill, had to be paid off in 10 years, and they had to make payments. And that extra couple $100, it was every single month, threw her entire budget off. And then they make sure, hey, we're going to go get this money. If you don't want to give it to us, we're going to contact whoever you work for.
Yep. Yeah, I've seen them garnish wages. I've seen them take somebody's retirement from them and garnish their wages.
Yeah, they can. There's a lot of things, and we were in a meeting earlier, the ACA Business Club, and if you're in the Kansas City area, I'd say go check that out, because you're going to get in front of a bunch of business owners.
Awesome club to be a part of.
Yeah, and there was a business owner who walked in. He's a lawyer, and everyone kind of goes right to him, because it's always, like, I always say, as soon as he walked in, I was like, oh, this is going to be a hot topic. Like, everybody's going to want to be talking to him, because everybody's got a case to where they're like, oh, is this true? Is this true? Like, lawyers are, and they're good at what they do.
Yes.
There's a reason why they make a lot of money. I mean, litigation is huge in the nature of the business that we're in now.
Yep.
Like, it's huge. You always got to make sure that you're taking care of yourself.
Yep.
I think that's huge. So, Rusty, if somebody is looking for insurance, why should they contact you? What are you going to do different than every other insurance agent out there?
So I have a passion for helping people, and excuse me, I make sure that my people are taken care of. I've got contractors and stuff that I work with that if something happens, we can send them out there. I educate my clients on stuff that they might not understand or situations that they never even thought of. And I work with multiple carriers, so I've got more than one option where, like, when you're with a captive, you guys only have one company that you can work with.
Correct.
And whatever the rate is, that's whatever the rate is. Or with me, with my multiple carriers, I can shop every one of them.
Yeah, and I think that's huge.
And so I have ran into circumstances where, like, owns their home, really good on their home, no claims, but a bunch of tickets or towing charges. You'd be amazed at how many people have multiple towing charges. And so I've ran into situations where I need to write their home with one company and then the auto with another company until we can get their driving record cleaned up enough to
Move them over.
move them together. And that's
And that's huge to be able to have somebody that can facilitate that deal. Yeah, I know how frustrating it was when I was with that captive company and their auto situation. We couldn't say they need an SR22, for example. We couldn't write their auto insurance, but we had their home insurance, and then we end up losing the whole deal because of the package deal, even though we were giving them great coverage on the other side. Having somebody that is there, because people always want to talk to the same person. They want to work with the same person on their home, their auto, preferably their life, different stuff out there. They're trying to make sure that they get it in one stop shop.
Yep.
That's huge. Being able to help people in those situations, that is huge.
And that's also one nice thing about me with doing the SR22s is, like, say you have a client that does get an SR22.
Mm-hmm.
They call you and you can be like, State Farm can't write them, or whoever, farmers, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I can do a non-owner policy on them. So what that does is they keep their home and their auto with whoever they have, and then I can just do the SR22 separate on its own.
Yeah, and I think that's huge as well. Being able, and if you're an insurance agent out there and you need somebody, I would reach out to Rusty because he's great to work with, and that's going to come up in your business. So if you don't have somebody that can do those non-owners policies, you better find somebody. And I would encourage you to just reach out to Rusty because he's going to be able to help you out, help keep your clients. I know I used to have people in my wheelhouse that I knew would be able to do it, and I knew they weren't going to pillage my book because that's what it is. It is about networking and being able to work with people you trust. And at the end of the day, I always held a responsibility to my clients, and I still do with my real estate clients. I always hold that responsibility of I want to put you in the best situation possible.
Yep.
And so, yeah, if that means you leave me for a little while, but I still want to be able to keep tabs on you too because I want to make sure you're taken care of. I don't ever want to send somebody to someone and then they have a terrible experience and now my name's tied to that.
Yep.
Without the opportunity to mitigate it too, like help them figure out why that situation went awry and different situations like that. Now I realize I can't control everything, but I do. I love to keep in contact with people to make sure that they do get taken care of by different people. So real quick before we hop off here, is there anything else you'd like to add, just for the viewers out there to get to know Rusty a little bit better on what's your driving factors for insurance and what your game plans are?
My driving factor for insurance is helping people, being a part of that. Also, my family. I want to make sure that I provide for my family.
I think that's huge.
Yes.
Knowing your why is and being motivated by that is always a big thing. And again, I would encourage anybody, if you're looking for insurance or you're looking for somebody that you want that's going to take care of you, reach out to Rusty. He's going to be able to talk with you through those different situations. And I love insurance people in general just because I was one. I know how hard it is, and I know how difficult it is to find good people in the industry. So if you find those one in a dozen good people in the industry that are really taking care of people, you got to work with them. Make sure they're taking care of you, and they just got to educate you.
I genuinely care for people. I want to make sure that all of my clients are taken care of, whether it be for a speeding ticket, I've got lawyers, or an accident, I've got body shops I work with, or something happens with their house, I've got contractors that I work with, and I mean,
that's huge.
yeah, I want to make sure that they are taken care of.
Yeah. So if somebody is watching this and they're like, man, I really need to check my insurance out and I want to get a hold of Rusty, how do they get a hold of you?
You can email me at rusty@unitednowkc.com. You can swing by my office, it's 100 Northwest Inglewood Road. I'm in the Realty Executives building. You never know, one of my dogs might be up there with me. So
Yeah. Hey, there's nothing wrong with that. Everybody likes good dogs.
And you can give me a call, 816-437-8111.
Yeah. If you're looking for insurance, you need a better deal, and you want somebody that's going to take care of you, reach out to Rusty. Give him a call at that number. Now, if this is your first time to the channel, I really appreciate you watching this video. Make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to the channel, and then hit that little bell so you get future notifications of future videos with different people that are here in the Kansas City area that are going to help you with your move to the Kansas City area. Insurance is one of the biggest things that you have to be worried about when you are looking to buy anywhere in the entire nation. Make sure that you are taking care of that asset, because it is a huge asset, and that's why I bring on insurance people, probably more than I bring on any other industry, is because I genuinely know that that is the biggest way to protect that asset, is having good insurance people. You have to have good insurance people. Make sure they're taking care of your stuff. So if you want somebody that's going to take care of your stuff, reach out to Rusty today. I appreciate everybody watching this video. Thank you.